Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a special edition of the Squared Circle Podcast. I am indeed your host, Nate the Effing Great, because we've been having some technical difficulties with our stuff, and, boy.
This is probably going to be the only time I allow you to do that.
I disagree. Thank you, EC3. But you know what, guys? We are starting off our SummerSlam series here tonight. For those of you that know, SquaredCircle.com, live on Spreaker.com, iTunes, Player.fm, PodDirectory.com, Stitcher.com, TuneIn Radio, IW Nerd, and of course, Turnbuckle Productions on YouTube. Boom, drop the mic. Who's your daddy, Spencer?
I thought you, congratulations.
Well, it's not that hard. But anyway, you guys, we are starting this on a big note because we have with us the mastermind behind Wrestling with Regret, the one, the only, Z-Man himself, Brian Zane. Brian, thank you again for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here.
You're back. You're back, John.
And better than
almost
ever.
a year ago. Yeah. both of us in better places than where we were almost a year ago. So, thanks for coming on. For those of you listening right now, tell us a bit about yourself and who you are. I know we did this last year, but we have a lot of new listeners since last year. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and those of you who don't know you, what you do.
Sure. Well, I've been in the wrestling business for a good 10 plus years now. First, I was a wrestler, and I sucked, and then I became a manager. I've been doing that ever since, and then about 3.5 years ago, I started this little side project, out of my home office called Wrestling with Regret, where I basically took the Nostalgia Critics whole gimmick and did wrestling with it, and that's kind of how it came to be. And then, over the last year or so, I've experienced some tremendous growth in my channel, because about a year ago, it took me 2 years to get to 2,000 subscribers, and now I'm almost at 150,000 1 year later. So it's pretty cool. It's been a pretty cool ride, and to be in the conversation for wrestling's most prominent YouTubers, alongside the guys from What Culture and Stephen Larson and all the show and all that. It's really cool to be in that conversation.
And we had Adam Machidi on the show a few weeks ago, and he mentioned you and that you guys had worked on a project together. The whole how WWE should book the Invasion. That was one of my favorites with you on the What Culture channel. But it's really good to see that something can just take off on YouTube, and especially in the wrestling community. It's kind of a close-knit community. That you take a step back and look at it. So to see you go from 2,000 subscribers just skyrocket to almost 150, that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, well, that's the funny thing about wrestling fans. There's no one can agree on anything. No one in wrestling and fandom could agree that the sky is blue. It's there's always going to be debate. There's always going to be points of contention and differences in opinion and stuff. And so, it opens the floodgates for a lot of people with different viewpoints to communicate their views. And my viewpoint's a little different than others because, like I said, I've been in the wrestling business. And I'm not saying you have to have that experience to have an opinion, but it just makes my opinion a little different because my background is different than others.
Oh yeah. And actually, you were mentioning What Culture before, and I wanted to ask us about this. It was mentioned by Mr. Adam Blampier himself that you and What Culture are actually going to be doing some sort of mega deal going into WrestleMania next year. Without giving too much away, can you give us kind of a preview on what we can expect with something that big? I mean, two of the biggest wrestling deals on YouTube today are going to be clashing at WrestleMania. What can we possibly expect?
And I'll tell you what it is, because Lord knows I've been plugging it away on my channel. It's called the Internet Darlings Live, and it's happening Saturday, April 1st, the day before WrestleMania. And no, it's not an April Fool's joke. This is not going to be happening. I certainly hope it will be happening, but it's
blame Blampier.
money to this thing. But it's going to be a big super show, basically, featuring some of the biggest wrestling YouTubers out there. Like I said, there's myself, Blondie is going to be involved in it. I'm going to try and get some other What Culture people, but there's so many people in that group, like, I can't have them all on stage, otherwise it'll just be a What Culture show.
Right.
So it's going to be me and Blondie and Grim from Grim's Toy Show.
Grim!
Yeah, we're involved together, and then we just recently announced JD from New York and Joe Cronin, and we have one more big announcement scheduled for the main stage talent this SummerSlam weekend. Can't give it away yet, but and there will be other YouTube personalities who will either be there in person or in some kind of pre-recorded fashion. And basically, the whole thing is it's going to be, like a big panel discussion. We'll be talking about, big macro topics in wrestling, and do audience Q&A. We'll be doing WrestleMania predictions, and there's going to be some other funny stuff in there too, not just us sitting on stage talking. We're going to be doing some stuff that might be a little off the wall. It's going to be a really fun time. It's the first kind of gathering of its kind, because no one has been able to get together and bring all these names together. And so it's going to be exciting. I think, because it's the first one. I hope there are more after it. But, I think that there is a market to see people, your favorite YouTube personalities in person. And so when you have them all together, it's an even bigger deal, because, very few people are fans of just one channel. You're usually fans of a couple of different things. You dabble in multiple. So I think we're covering a lot of bases with the names we have announced that are planning on announcing.
Oh, gosh, yeah. There was actually some Twitter questions that I wanted to get throughout the show, and we'll do that every now and then. First one I'll ask you, Mr. Brian, comes from Willie Devil Parker at Devil Willie. He asked the question, how would you run Raw or SmackDown? And I'm very curious to hear, especially after Raw kind of, I don't know if the phrase tanked is strong enough of a word for last night, but...
I wouldn't, it's tough to replicate the excitedness and the goodness that came from that first post-Battleground Raw, because they wanted to get off on the right foot, and they did a big deal and everything. And then, I actually watched Raw live for the first time in a long time last night, and it was so boring. It's just slog. This is part of my job now, to watch this, because now I'm starting to do. This week I'm going to be doing a recurring segment where I review Raw and SmackDown together, and I pick which one won that week. But it's just, it was boring. And the thing is, the thing that really woke me up the most was the moment at the very end when, they had the Brian Foley promo that wasn't really going anywhere, and then Rusev and Cesaro come out, out of nowhere, and there's this match. That got me hooked. So it's the result doesn't always have to be a positive one, but if you can keep people guessing and put in some surprise things now and then. There's no surprises anymore in WWE. No. There's nothing, Shane McMahon coming back was a big surprise. They say they're surprises for the pay-per-views, it seems, but there's nothing they do to actually make Raw and SmackDown must-watch television. It's not appointment TV anymore because there's nothing exciting. It's you could literally just read the results and paint a picture in your head. Okay, that's what happened. Oh, something that happened last week. What a shock, I think that's just the nature of the business now. There's no competition. There's no reason. People have been saying that for years. There's no reason for them to do wacky, crazy stuff because they're playing it safe, because they don't have to go for risks. But if I were to run Raw or SmackDown, and I don't want to get specific with a fantasy booking because that's not my thing, but I think I would just definitely try to incorporate more surprises. Good or bad. I'm not saying do wacky Vince Russo stuff like put everything on a pole or in a box or on a forklift, but just or exploit incredibly dated stereotypes about cultures and ethnicities. But just do something. Change the script up and just every once in a while pique the audience's interest with something that's actually worthwhile.
Yeah, and I completely agree that the Cesaro and Rusev segment during the Foley and Bryan segment, that came as quite a shock to me. I was not expecting something to happen during that segment. I looked at the clock. I went, oh, that's it. It's just going to be them talking about, Raw and SmackDown for 15 minutes, and then we'll cut to the graphic and head on to Queen of the South. But no, they really did surprise me, at least at the end anyway, that they kind of had, and thank God we have the exclusive content button on. They had the balls to bring out Rusev and Cesaro and put on a championship match with 10-15 minutes to go in Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I remember a time back when I was first watching, the overrun was like 5 minutes on Raw, and now it's like, might as well just start Queen of the South at 11:30. It's just right. That's the start time. Yeah. It's like I said, surprises are, variety is the spice of life, and one thing that the main roster at least is severely lacking is variety. If you take the whole world of WWE, dare I call it the WWE universe, and you just take a look at their whole body of work of what they are airing in its entirety. You got your Raw and SmackDown, which are they are what they are, and then you've got NXT, which is usually pretty fresh, and you have the Cruiserweight Classic going on, which is a really big breath of fresh air. So if you were to lump that in with the main roster stuff, then the average would go up, if you get what I'm saying. Right. So it's but what they're doing now is that they're coasting. They've been coasting for the last 10 years, and it's they just need to, like I said, they need to do different things. Like what they did on Raw the night Sasha Banks won the women's title and they announced the Universal Championship. That was like what you do to make a compelling Raw. Obviously, you can't announce a new title every week, and you can't have a new champion every week, but do something that makes it worth watching. That's the bare minimum. Make me care to watch.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned it too. The rosters for both Raw and SmackDown. I just want to get your opinion very quickly on the rosters. You said they are what they are, but it does seem like to me that it's pretty one-sided, and I guess that concerns me a bit if they do want to make SmackDown this big hit show, that it does seem like Raw's roster is stacked.
Well, and the first time, my first initial response after the draft was like, yeah, I think SmackDown got kind of hosed. And for a minute, I wasn't really liking the direction they're going with bringing back guys like Rhino and Shelton Benjamin, who, of course, now that's delayed because it turns out to be a Road Cup. But
terrible.
But the thing, and the more I thought about it, it's like, actually, I think SmackDown is kind of in a good position. Because when I watched Raw last night, I'm like, wow, this is supposed to be a show, and this is the best. I mean, the talent pool is larger, and there are bigger stars in it. But there are also crappy stars on the show, people I don't really care about, that water the rest of the product down. And the way they write it, it's just like, okay, give me something new. Like, the idea of Sin Cara and Neville as a tag team kind of intrigued me. But seeing the Titus O'Neil Darren Young thing, the whole Darren Young thing fizzled out super quick. I don't know what was going on with that. Like, he had a moment of brilliance against The Miz, and that's dead. But I think it's the length of time makes it more of a drag, and when you incorporate all of the in-show commercials, not just the 3 or 4 commercials you see on loop every break between segments, right. But like the stuff that they have, the stuff they have like in show when they're promoting Scooby-Doo or whatever Little Caesars thing they had. When you watch that, it's just kind of that just drags, and then coupled with the fact that Raw had a terrible crowd last night, and that's not always going to be the case. You'll get good crowds in places. I didn't realize Anaheim had one of the worst crowds in wrestling, but there you go. It was, there's a lot of different things, but my point is, I think SmackDown has a better shot at succeeding because you have a greater concentration of people who are actually more over. You've got John Cena, you've got Dean Ambrose, you've got AJ Styles, there's a fourth person in there I'm forgetting who's like on that list.
Bray Wyatt, maybe.
Wyatt, maybe. Yeah. You got these people, and it's a shorter time frame, so you've got there is a greater sense of urgency. And the thing is, SmackDown, it has to be its own show now. It can't be. It's not the Raw recap show anymore, like it was before the brand split. So they have to make their own show. So the potential for them actually being exciting and doing better things is there because there's a greater sense of urgency because there is less time to work with. That's basically my point is that, Raw has more toys to play with, but the people who are in charge don't know what to do. They don't know how to play them.
Right.
Well, what's interesting is that